to the project TransACTION. And before we start, I simply would like very shortly to introduce myself. I think it's always nice if you know to whom you are speaking. Like Sally said, my name is Sonia Hetzner. I'm quite involved in the Media and Learning Association, being currently the president of it. And I work at Innovation in Learning Institute. We are the Digital Teaching and Learning Unit at the Friedrich Alexander University in Erlangen, Nuremberg, in Germany, in the southern part of Germany. So we are today looking at the project TransACTION. This is the name of it, so it's quite a long one because we wanted to have somehow this acronym. So we came with Digital Transformation in Higher Education through Active Co-Creation, Training, Innovation, Open Education, and Networking. So it's nearly everything there that we need in our community. I'm not obviously doing this project alone. We are a group, all members of the Media and Learning Association. This is a project funded by the Erasmus program under the so-called Key Activity 2, focusing on higher education. You see the members here, so myself coming from FAU, then we have KU Leuven, then the Media and Learning Association, also as a partner of the project, then the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, as well as the Wageningen University and Research from the Netherlands. So this is pretty much the group that is doing it. But the key question is, why did we start it to do TransACTION? And I can bring it very, very shortly that the motivation for the project was really responding to concrete needs of the media and learning community in the multiple exchanges that we had before the pandemic, during the pandemic. We came up that there is for us the need in our community to work on certain aspects. And these are just briefly introducing them. The one thing is, I think we all work in that digital transformation in education. It's a process, but the pandemic has accelerated this process. And so we would like to contribute to this process and in a network to work on certain interesting topics. The second thing we found out is that we would like to really work towards innovation in multimedia design in production. So also coming out with or reflecting new concepts, new ideas, how to do it, addressing this third space at universities, the teaching staff, but also looking at how to involve students in the whole process. The third goes pretty much in line with the second one, is this need for continuous innovation in the design and production process. So this is the core of our work in this community. And so it's important for us in the exchange to come up with new ideas. And this is a very concrete need that we noticed during the pandemic. We would like to share more the resources that we are producing. We are quite an open community and we really like to share. And if someone has a need and asks, do you have something? We are very open to share it, but we would like to support more this sharing process. And finally, obviously, is also a way for promoting networking, having events like this one, and many others. In a single slide, what we want to do, and we see supporting academic teaching staff and students, supporting the service staff in the development of innovative concepts, which are scientifically sound, promoting media formats, collaboration and exchange, and also the exchange of open resources in higher education. Just to finalize, maybe the ones of you that are familiar with the Erasmus Plus Key Activity 2 projects, you always have to develop the projects and really around certain results that you are going to come out with. And we have five of these five results. stated in the project proposal, which we are working on. The first one is the co-creation framework for the design in production for multimedia resources and concepts in higher education teaching. This is going to be a strong focus on our activity today. So right after me, the colleagues from KU Leuven are going to introduce you to that framework, which I think is quite innovative and really brings these new ideas into the community. The second one is an open, not a MOOC. We didn't dare to put an M on it. We don't know if it's going to go massive, but an open online course on media design. And the basic idea is really to bring together all the scientific knowledge, but also experienced knowledge in a course. And the third quite important result is a hub. I told you, the exchange of media resources is something we want to promote. And so we want to develop the technical environment in order to be able to do that. We want, obviously, to have training activities around the results that we are developing. This is the focus of result number 4. And at the almost very end of the project is a 3-year project. We are now finalizing almost the first year. So, but at the very end of the project, we will also going to bring together on a recommendation report the experiences and also a kind of informing also the political level to how these topics can evolve and what we need to support them. So this was in a very quick run, a very quick overview on the project TransACTION. We are now, like I said, by the end of year 1, we focus in the first year quite a lot on the co-creation framework. And so I stop now and I hand over to the colleagues of the framework, or probably first to Sally, and then we move on to the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonia. Indeed, thanks very much for the introduction. I see we have some new people who have joined in the meanwhile. You're all very welcome. So if you can, as I mentioned earlier, adjust your name to, I think most people have actually, you've put the name of your institution after your name in Zoom. Thank you so much. We're going to hand over to Evert, and Evert and Hanne are going to basically run the next significant part of the session. So Evert, how are you going to do this? A presentation and then some work for people to do, or how are you going to do it?
Yeah, indeed, we do have a presentation for approximately half an hour, and afterwards we'll take time to indeed elaborate on the work we're doing at the moment.
Great, okay. And we will make your slides available after, so people don't need to note those down. So over to you.
All right, I will start sharing the presentation. Can you see my screen?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so like Sonia just said, we are currently working on a framework, a co-creation framework that is about how to create multimedia in higher education and the place that it can take up in an online course or in a course in higher education. First, before diving into the 5 different steps that we have identified, I want to give you a bit of a bigger picture of where this framework fits in our institution in KU Leuven. So the cycle you see on the screen is not the framework yet that we're going to be presenting, but some of you might be familiar with this. This is just a cycle of ADDIE, analysis, design, develop, implement, and evaluate, which is used in a lot of different contexts. And it's a cycle that we follow at KU Leuven when we develop a new course. In my team, specifically, we're working a lot with online courses, but these are just some general steps that we follow. And the framework that we're about to present for us fits within this design and developing step. So it's kind of a smaller cycle that you could see within those 2 phases, because the bigger cycle that you see on the screen here is about the design of a whole course, and multimedia gets a place in this, and therefore it's also part of the design of the course. but it's only a small part of it. And then the next phase is the development of all the materials in the course, and multimedia will again be a part of that. And then once you have done all those steps, you get back into the implementation and the evaluation phase of the course. So that's just where we're situated. And just something general about the framework is that we wanted to make it general enough, broad enough, so that you could use it both in the context of a complete new or a complete redesign of a course. So it can be part of something really big, but you could also use it when you're just thinking about creating one or a few multimedia products, and you really want to think it through, and you really want to see where it fits within the rest of the course. So you can use it for those extremes and everything in between, or that's at least the goal. You will see that for every step, there will be an intermediate product that you can that you should reach at the end of the phase, but we will say something more about that when we have presented everything. So then I think I can go to the first step we identified, which is contextualizing. So the main question that you want to answer in this step is, where does the multimedia you want to create or you want to use fit in? So in the context of a big redesign of a course, in this first step, you could be really working on the structure of the course and on all the different learning activities that you have in the course. If you're not working with a complete redesign of a course, but just you already have a course and you want to enrich it with some multimedia materials, you should at least have the structure of the course in the back of your mind. You should always start with that. You should have some sort of blueprint on it. We think it's important that you agree on those like on the structure and on those aspects with the didactical team that you're working with. So this is just something that ideally will already be there in the back of your mind, but this is something you should agree on before thinking of creating multimedia, actually. And specifically, we say here that you should have the learning activities you want to use in the course in mind. So what we mean by that is learning activities is a term that's used in the ABC design method and also in some other instructional design methods. What we mean by that is what the student is doing at any point in time when they're going through the course. So it could be that they're looking at a video, listening to podcasts, they could be reading a text, they probably need to do some exercises, maybe write a report or paper. Those are all learning activities. And what we identify in this step is that you should have an idea of the general learning activities you are using in your course, and you should pick the learning activities you want to enrich with multimedia. You should think what the added value of multimedia can be for all of those activities. So at the end of this phase, you should get started on a product sheet for your multimedia product and bring the context, visualize the context, write down the learning goals, the content you will be explaining in, for example, a video, how you'll assess it. You should start to write down all of those things. And most importantly, you should know why you are creating multimedia for a certain part of the course. Once you have that clear for everybody that's working on it, you can move on to the collect and compare phase. In this phase, we really want you to stop and think first before diving into creating something yourself. We want to encourage to have a look at what is already out there. So basically, you can ask yourself the question, does the material we need already exist, or do we already have material that we can use with some slight adjustments? So there's the option A and B you see on the screen here. So for example, another teacher at your department could have some video material that you could really use in your course. You can check on that. You can also look up resources online, maybe in an open educational resource database, and maybe you find some materials there that you can use. Now, very important for those two options, so A and B, is to check the copyright rules. So like it's different in different contexts. So we're not going to list all the rules here, but if you do end up using material of someone else, be sure to always check what you're allowed to do. But then we also see a third option here, the C. So is there material that you can use as inspiration or as an example in terms of format or content? So maybe online you find a very nice video with a very nice setup where they have a panel of experts and they really are able to capture the attention well, and the interaction on screens is really valuable. But maybe it's not in your field, or it's not really the content you're looking for. You could use it as an inspiration, or vice versa. If you find some material where the content is really good, but you want to maybe use it in a different format. So in this step, we encourage you to end up with a collection of multimedia material that you can use in some way, directly with adjustments or as inspirations, just so you already know what's out there, what works for you, what works for maybe your students, and to go on from there to really determine what you want to be creating or what you want to use in your course. Now, if you're only looking for one type of or for one specific multimedia product and you find it from someone else and you are allowed to use it, then the cycle stops here. But I think in most cases there will be additional steps, and you will also be creating multimedia yourself. So I hand over to Evert for the next steps that you will have to go through.
Okay, then we come to the third step. And as you noticed, all previous steps were mostly about talking about the product and the place it holds within education. This is, to say, this final step in that kind of process. You started out with a kind of product sheet in the first step. This is the part to finalize that same product sheet. There are a lot of things to consider and to be clear of with all partners involved. And we've split them up into the 3 P's, the people, process, and product. When it comes to people, well, the main questions will be who can and who should be involved, and who will evaluate what and when. So it all comes to who is involved and what will those people do. Then it is important to talk about the process as well, because we know educational purpose is super important. We always have restraints when it comes to money and time. So making sure for everyone involved how much money and time there is has a big influence on what will be made as well. Same with maybe the external support you can get besides the people working in the team. And last but not least is the product itself, obviously. There are technical measurements, there are didactic and content criteria. There's a certain look and feel you want it to have, maybe, and there are definitely multimedia principles that need to be worked on. So this is kind of the phase where you have a really specific look into what the product should be. So you can, at the end, also evaluate this product on these measurements, which is kind of the goal. And also you will notice the next 2 steps will be more creative or more technical. And it's always safe to have like a strong, solid base to fall back on, which will be this product sheet that says everything we actually want, expect, and need from this product. Well, and then we go to the design phase. It's kind of a pre-production phase. We are super aware that if you hear about the model, these are the phases you want to look into. On the other hand, these are like the most abstract phases as well. It is hard to grasp what is really needed to get the product you need. The intermediate product here is a script, but you could do it. This is sometimes you say this is a step where the magic happens, in the sense that you need to be creative and kind of like diverging different ideas and then converging the ideas that are in line with the product goal, and do this multiple times in a kind of process until you end up with first the concept and then afterwards with the script. So that would be step 4. And then the final step, and this is the hardest step, we need to be honest with you, we wish we had the magic formula to create the thing you designed in the design step, but we don't. We started out with describe your own process in 25 pages, and then we took out everything that was specific for our institution, or specific for a really specific format of multimedia, and we ended up with barely anything. So we are trying a different approach now, and what we're trying to do in this step is try to design packages. There are some things that need to be done designing any multimedia content, and we try to pack it in certain packages so it's easy to share with others and to give homework for everyone to do, and to be clear that the project is fully done and all aspects are covered. We can get into this more in the discussion afterwards, but the main idea should be that we are really at the moment trying to look for what can we say that is applicable to all partners and to all contexts, and still is a reasonable thing to say or to use, or can be useful to use in all those different situations. The intermediate product here is, well, the final product, obviously. It means it might not be fully distributed or assessed, but as Hanne said in the beginning, this is a part of a bigger process, and the bigger process takes over after the development phase. Now, this was for the, let's say, the abstract, more scientific part. I can hear you say now, well, and what you're going to do with it, because if you present it like this, it is nothing you can really use at the moment. Well, there is a timeline. We've been designing this framework. We had a workshop at the Media and Learning Conference. We had a lot of meetings and brainstorming, and we're almost at the end of the designing of the framework. Obviously, there will be changements be done after testing it, but for now we say, well, this is what we're going to work with.
We seem to have a frozen screen, or is it me?
No, I think Evert is frozen.
Evert's frozen. He's frozen with a smile on his face, which doesn't happen to all of us. Hanne, can you keep going, or you're very close to each other, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I might check. I think, is it
Evert?
Because it changed. Yeah, I think you're back.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
We lost you for a moment,
Can
Evert.
you hear me as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now we hear you again.
Okay, good.
Where was I? At the timeline, or?
Yeah, so that we're at the end of the framework design.
Okay, good. Not that long ago, luckily. Good. So we are at the end of designing framework for now. It will receive some iterations, but for now it's done for us, because we're working on a manual, and the manual holds very concrete scenarios to take these 5 steps into practice. And by February, we would like to test these with our own teachers at KU Leuven. And in September, we will send these to the partners, and they will get a chance to test the manual as well. But we can go a bit deeper into the manual. Yes. So obviously what we've presented until now, the framework itself will.
Should we see if anyone's got any questions, Evert?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anybody at the moment? We don't have any questions on the chat, but I just thought maybe it's a good idea to just pause for a moment and just see if anybody's got any questions they want to ask you. Feel free to switch on your mic on your camera if you'd like to put any questions to Evert or Hanne at this stage, or post it in the chat. No, okay, sorry, then don't worry. Back to you, Evert.
Then I have a question about this this sheet. Because you're talking about scenarios, so you're talking about didactical scenarios where multimedia can be used in. So, for example, like if you want to achieve a flipped classroom or something, or should I think about something else?
Yeah,
scenario.
I can see that what you propose is super useful, but we were thinking in another direction with this project, in the sense that the idea of the manual is that if you are third space or a teacher yourself, and it is clear that you need a certain type of multimedia, that the scenarios are used for the different meetings you will have to go through the process of making the multimedia.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's just to be clear about what you mean with the scenario.
It was a very good question, but our goal or idea is actually that if you want to make multimedia, you can take your schedule or your agenda and say, okay, these are 5 steps, so we'll have 5 meetings. For every meeting, we take more or less, depending on your situation, 2 hours. And the manual will give you very hands-on, ready-to-use scenarios to do within those 2 hours to reach the intermediate goals we set out. And besides that, there will be a workbook we're working on, which is kind of an easier way to manage the progress. It will have some pre-made things to keep track of the project, and you can just, after every meeting or during every meeting, fill in the things you need to know or things you need to keep. And by filling in the whole workbook, you will see visually what you've decided and where you are in the process. Any other questions?
Looks like not for the moment.
Okay, if not, we can go on, Hanne, with the practical part. We want some work from you.
Yeah. So very good question about what we mean with the scenarios, because we will actually we would like to ask you to also think with us a little bit on what these scenarios could be. The way we're going to do this is in a minute we will share patterns with you, and you can brainstorm on it with us, but I will explain a bit more about these scenarios and how they fit in the framework. So what we currently have in mind is that we kind of have a whole list of scenarios. We already have some in mind. We are looking to create some more, and for every scenario, so the scenario is indeed a way to reach the intermediate product of every phase. So to reach those goals, and the way it works is that we have different users, different participants that you could invite to these sessions, and you can choose the level of co-creation you want to have in every step. Because as mentioned before, we are working on a co-creation framework, so there's different degrees of co-creation. And very concretely, for the users or the participants, we think in the first place, this will always be the course team or the teaching staff or the didactic team, the people who are working on the course, working on the materials, so the people in charge of this, they will always be involved. Maybe not always the whole team, but some of them will have to take the initiative. And then you can invite different stakeholder groups. We see 2 big groups here. It's one is the students, and one is third space. But we made some different distinctions here, in the sense that you can ask students who are engage in the course or who will be following the course this semester, for example, you can ask them to work with you on the multimedia products and how they should, what the product should be. You could also ask students who have already done the course and who have passed it, because they, of course, know how, what the function of the multimedia products was in the course, and if it worked well, or what they would like to see differently. You could also ask students who have no affiliation with the course directly. So you could think about job students we have at KU Leuven. We have some job students who are working with certain faculties on product, for example, on animation videos. And then the second group is the third space. Experienced professionals who can work with you, who are not directly in your course team, but who have certain expertises in the pedagogical field or multimedia or technical, so they can help you with those skills and with those insights. So these are the people that we involve in our scenario. So for every scenario, we define which group is involved or which groups. It can be different combinations. And then the second part is that there are different levels of co-creation, like you mentioned. So the first degree here is actually that the course team or the teaching staff is working on it alone. So there is no real co-creation. A second degree is that there's participation. So you could ask students or third space to be involved in your scenario, in your process, but they are not necessarily the people deciding on the outcomes and deciding on the final products. And then you have a third degree of co-creation, which is real full co-creation, and you're working together with everyone that you invite on the outcomes of the phase and on the final product. So there's different degrees. So are there any questions about this, about those different parameters actually that you could that you can define for every scenario? Is anything here unclear, or is everything clear to everyone? All right. So then I would like to put this into practice a little bit. So I think this link will also be shared in the chat by one of my colleagues. And we would like to ask you to go to this link, and then we can work together on some of the scenarios. You still see my screen, I think. So I'll quickly already introduce how this is going to work. So in the first column, I have all the instructions, so you can always go back to this. Here we have a picture, which is very briefly the framework that we just presented, just in some shorter text, some shorter explanations. So we can find a summary of all the phases in here. And then what we would like to ask you is to think of some possible scenarios to reach the goals of every step together with us. So how it works is that we already have some examples for every step. We already put them here. This can just be a quick inspiration for you, but you can think of completely different things as well. And for every step, we also noted down the intermediate product. So this is what we just went through in the presentation, but just so you have it all on the same page. So this is the goals that they should be reaching in every step. So we would like to ask you to make new cards for every scenario that you think of. So for example, if you have a scenario how to reach step 2, you click on the plus sign here, you type a title, you explain it, the rest here, and then you click on publish, and then it appears in this column. If you want to give feedback, or if you want to add something to a scenario that's already on here, one of the blue ones, or a scenario of someone else in this group, you can also always make an orange card. So you can write here what scenario you are replying to, and then instead of putting a white card, you can change it to orange. So we have a clear overview of the new scenarios and of added comments or added suggestions to maybe add to a certain scenario. Like I just said, you can include different participants for every scenario and choose a level of co-creation. I listed them here so you have everything on the same page. So you can include different types of students, you can include different types of third space, and you can think of different levels of co-creation. So you can already write this in a scenario. Maybe it's a scenario that could be that you could do with multiple stakeholder groups. Then you could edit. If it's not clear yet, then you can also leave it open. So I hope it's working for everyone to join the Padlets. If not, be sure to mention it. I can also not see the chat, so I don't know if anything.
Jovi's posted is in the chat, so
Okay.
everyone should have it, Hanne, at this stage. It opens fine for me. I presume
Okay.
everybody else can open it as well. I see
All
somebody
right.
starting to move things.
Yeah.
That's great. Good.
Okay. So we would like to take around 10 minutes now to just brainstorm, to just add some scenarios and react to each other, and then we will come back to it and discuss what's on the board, and then we can also discuss any other questions or comments you have about the framework or the scenarios.
Can I just also say that, I mean, we're not too many people in the group. We're 24 people in the group. So if anybody wants to shout out if they're having any problems with using the Padlet, please feel free to do so. Is that okay?
Yes. I will stop sharing my screen for a minute, and then we will come back in around 10 minutes.
Yeah. And we'll keep everybody up there and we can see if anyone's having any particular problems. Thanks. 10 minutes. Great.
Okay, we are 10 minutes in and we have another 10 minutes left. Thank you, first of all, for all the contributions. We've read a lot of interesting things. Is there anyone who wants to elaborate on what he or she posted on the Padlet here?
We think we need some background music, by the way.
Music at the beginning was a good start. Shall we pick some out then?
We need to move on a little bit as well. Evert, just watch our time a bit to make sure our colleagues get a chance to present their parts of the project too.
Yeah, sure. Do you want us to end earlier? I thought we decided on 3 o'clock or?
No, I'm just looking at the time at the moment if we have some questions as well in discussion. No, 3 o'clock's good. Great.
Yeah, but maybe you missed my first question, but my first question was just, can someone elaborate on their what I sent in, what I put on the tablet, or any other thoughts, questions you had while doing this?
Very quiet.
Can I ask the 5D cycle of appreciative inquiry, who added this?
I did.
I really liked it and I was wondering.
I did add that, Evert. And I'm not sure I was how do you call it? Whether it was a right contribution in this setup. I was a little bit in doubt, but I personally I like the method a lot.
Have you worked with this way of working before, and do you see any clear differences or?
Yeah, what I liked about it is that you basically take a successful example as a starting point, and then see how you could apply it in other cases or in other situations or in other contexts or in other, well, that's basically the baseline. Because usually what you do while evaluating, well, at least in the Netherlands, we tend to look at the things that went wrong and could be better. And now you look at things that went well and you can apply it at other situations as well.
Yeah. To me, I link it to the thing underneath step 2 as well, the finding the right content. That comment. Because we notice here as well that even if you have a good example from a completely different field and it just goes to the look and feel, or it just goes to the kind of how the video is built up, it can be a huge inspiration as well. So that's kind of what happens in that step as well. Even though it is clear from the beginning that you can't use the video as is. Hanne, did you see any you would like to talk about or discuss?
Hanne, your mic's off.
Yes, yeah, I was trying to find my mic because I'm also sharing my screen. I haven't been able to go through everything, but I think, yeah, here the questions asked in this first step are very valid. I think to add not really necessarily to the scenarios, but to the, or maybe, but also to the workbook, to the like pages that you can fill in when you have decided on those things. I think there are some very good points here. I was wondering in the first column, who added the third space content perspective? Is it in the sense that people, yeah, is it in the sense that the people in the course team might not have all the content expertise about the or the topic?
Well, in the who, both, I try to find who is the teacher. And because our teachers are not, well, mostly they're not really have the didactical perspective. they really have a content perspective.
Yeah, that's we name them the course team or the teaching staff. So the people who are definitely involved in the process. So the people working on the course. Is this who you mean, or you still mean someone else?
Well, because I saw A, B, C, D, E, F, and I couldn't place the teacher of our university in it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we didn't give them a number and say, but maybe it's more clear if we also give them or a letter in this case. Yeah, in our we had in mind that the teacher or the person or people working on the course themselves, the didactic team of the course, are involved in all of the scenarios. But maybe it's good to add to make it more clear. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I think it's too much to go through all of the examples right now. I think some of them are really very good points for the workbook, and others very useful scenarios and the framework here as well. So we will definitely use it. This is also interesting to see the fill-in template, because that's kind of what we also want to achieve with the workbook, with the fill-in pages. So this is definitely something that could be used in there. Okay, thank you very much for all of the good examples. I think then we have a few more minutes to address some final questions. If anyone has some questions about this or about the bigger framework or our part of the project.
Great. Do you want to stop sharing, Hanne?
Yeah, sure.
Or Evert, yeah.
Yes.
So feel free to put your camera on, microphone on. Put up your hand if you'd like to say something, like to ask something. Is this the final version, by the way, of the framework now? Hanne and Evert?
It is the final version for now. As we said, we're going to test the scenarios. It might turn out that there's something wrong in the framework itself, and then we have another 2 years in the project to change it. But for now, before testing, we would like to test this framework.
Okay. Any takers for testing it out and trying it on people who are here? Looking at some of the people who are not from our partners, if you're interested in taking it up and testing it. Don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if you can, it would be good to get your feedback from it when you've tested it. Eva, where's the best place to find all the documentation?
Well, for now, we were planning on keeping it within the partners, but if you contact us, you can definitely get a first version. We would be very happy to hear your opinion on it.
Great. Okay, so that's an invitation to anybody who's here. Any last questions? We definitely need the background music, let people think. Look, thank you both very much. And it's really good to hear about it and see how far it's come. And what we will do now is that we're going to move over to Tim, because Tim Wohltmann from Wageningen University, also a partner in our project and is leading on the course. Tim, over to you.
Yeah, I just saw that I got the request to unmute myself. That's lovely. Yep. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Wohltmann. As Sally just said, I'm here today with my colleague Erich Keijmans from Wageningen. Thanks for everybody being here. I'm going to share my screen. See if I can do this right. Share. Yay.
Yay.
Can everybody see that?
Yep, looks good.
Sorry, let's go back. Okay, so as Sonia said at the outset, there are multiple deliverables as a part of this project. The deliverable that Wageningen is playing the lead in is the creation of the open online course, which Sonia correctly said we didn't dare to call massive yet. And the phase that we're going to be talking about in that development of that today in the next 10 minutes is the needs analysis, which includes a prototype. Let's see if I can actually skip forward. There we go. So briefly, there are several phases that we're going to move through as we look to develop this course together with all of the partners in the project. We're in phase 1 at current. That is the design phase, if you borrow the ADDIE model. And we are at the, we've conducted a needs analysis, which we'll talk about now. And then we are going to move on to the second part of that, which is testing a prototype. So testing the hypotheses. If you take a step back and look at the timeline, same as Evert just showed, there is a plan for this. The needs analysis was conducted this summer that concluded in a survey being sent out. We'll look at the results of that just now. And we'll move on from there to testing between now and let's say the end of March, a prototype, which gives us the opportunity to see, hey, are we on the right track? So the needs analysis, what have we learned thus far? So I'm going to start with the summary in true teaching fashion, and I'll conclude with it again. What we believe from the results of the survey is that there is a stratification by years of experience of the respondents, as well as the role in the creation of courses and multimedia. It seems like there are certain topics that everybody's interested in, and other topics that where interest diverges based upon, for example, roles and years of experience. Just to, in all transparency, we want to share the makeup of the survey. So we had 66 total respondents, as everybody can see here. That was spread fairly evenly across years of experience, which you see across the top. And then, and then going down the side, you see the different types of roles, and the roles were self-report. So in all transparency, we categorized the respondents based upon their own description of their role. So you see here folks that are involved in instructional design, people who are teaching the courses, and researchers, folks who are part of that course team that that was mentioned previously. And so on. And of course, multimedia producers as well. There are, given this, some groups that were, I think you could probably say, less represented. So what did we learn? This is the most important part. Well, in terms of outcomes, this probably isn't surprising for anybody who knows a little bit about andragogy, which is there's a big desire to directly apply what was learned, to broaden knowledge, so maybe more emphasis on a sort of a generalist approach, and certainly to analyze and connect what you've learned to your work. So again, that shouldn't necessarily, I think, be surprising, but it's a nice confirmation, if anything. I think it also confirms that we are definitely, we surveyed working professionals, and that's probably safe to say that that's very much our target group. The majority are interested in several topics. One of those is strategies for multimedia production. And here you can see that there's very broad support for these topics among multiple groups. And there is also similar broad support for do-it-yourself concepts and methods. So again, broad support across certain levels of experience. So 5 to 10 years. And then across multiple role types. Interestingly, multimedia developers, maybe this isn't interesting if you actually have for those of you that do have a background in multimedia development, but they are less interested in do-it-yourself concepts and methods, comparatively less interested. And then in terms of availability, there were, this, by the way, maybe some of you were actually respondents in this survey. There were multiple questions. I think in total we had, if I'm not mistaken, 12 questions. I think 4 of them focused on content and sort of packaging. Availability was one of these. So there's a big interest in non-synchronous learning. So versus a continuous course that we are all familiar with from campus, brick and mortar based education. There's a big drive to learn on your own time, to have long-term access to the content. So to see this content as a continued resource, and then to be able to share this content within the institution in which somebody is situated. So if we come back to what we or what somebody might take away from these results, is that it appears that there are subgroups within this third space that we might appeal to. Educators, for example, multimedia AV specialists, and then folks who are actually involved maybe more in the design, like instructional designers and course teams. And there could, these results could suggest that there is sort of a common core of curriculum and then maybe separate learning paths. And so one of the things we want to test in the hypothesis is whether, excuse me, in the prototype is whether the hypothesis that separate learning paths based upon role or or years of experience might be a better way to package this content than in a more traditional format where you just chunk all of the content and pump everybody through the same learning path. So what are the next steps? Well, we're going to test a prototype. Here's the proposal for that. So we would create an introductory module that gives a person looking at this within the space of 15 minutes or so an idea of what they might come across in these modules or in this group of modules. You can think of this maybe similar to something that you might see in a MOOC. Before you sign up for a MOOC, you have an intro video, sort of a teaser, and then you can see what is the what are the stages of learning within that and what might be some sample activities. We would cluster the participants in this prototype by learner profile. So again, that stratification between, for example, multimedia expert, course teams, et cetera, and recruit 10 participants from multiple countries. And this is similar to the survey. There were people from multiple countries who participated in that from multiple roles and experience levels. So we'll try to cover that same demographic roughly, and then invite folks for sessions where the first 15 minutes will be spent looking at this prototype, and then the other 30 minutes talking about how closely it aligns to their context, their needs, where they are trying to go to. Finally, as a manner of triangulation, we'll share these results out with, of course, the project group, but also with TransACTION Plus, which is a group of folks who voluntarily signed up to participate in giving feedback, for example. And we hope that this will lead to a really great product to be shared out via the hub, which is the third deliverable in this project, which I think we're going to cover in just a moment. And then, as stated in the proposal, that there would be the potential for a micro-credential at the completion of the course. So let me stop sharing now. And can I ask, are there questions?
Maybe we should ask if anyone would like to be included in that prototype testing phase that we have here. Looking at people who are not part of our community, our immediate community, for example, from University of Nantes, from UVA, from University of Galway. If any of you would like to be involved in this, University of Leuven, do you see this as something that might be worth testing out or trying? Putting you all on the spot.
Thanks, Fleur. And Sally, maybe also the note that if anybody participating today is actually already a member of the TransACTION Plus group, then creating, or just maybe park or bookmark in your mind, if you can create some space to give feedback on the results of testing in April or so, that would be really, really helpful. I think that's very valuable to get your perspective, to try to determine, are we on the right track? Does this make sense to you as well, what we feel like we've discovered? I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're also keen to know about comparable resources, courses. If you already have something similar in operation in your university or in your network, we'd love to know about it. I think that would also help a lot. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you very much. We are going to go to our final partner, not that they're our final partner, but the final presentation that we have planned for today, and that's Carlos and Sole from UPV. Carlos, where are you? It moves around. UPV.
I'm muted.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Up here. Okay. So let me jump in to talk about the result 3. So I think we're a bit late on time, so I try to be short.
We're okay, don't worry.
Yeah, okay. So, well, result 3 is about the Media Resources Hub. This is something that that both Sonia and also in in the presentation of result 1 has been told is the need. The need to have a place to find high quality curated content about co-creation, video, and learning. So, for instance, when I look at the framework for developing in Result 1, one of the main problems that I found is that usually it's difficult for a teacher to find good resources in terms of what he's going to explain. So at the end, probably you end up producing much more content that it would be needed, because you don't trust by default the content that you found somewhere else. So getting to this point, and also to displaying the result of the work of the people in TransACTION Plus and media learning community, the idea of result 3 is create a place for pointing to that high quality content, so people can have the opportunity, can be sure that that content can fit and can use that into their video production needs, their media production needs. So at the end, we want to be on the sweet spot between sharing, finding, and value. So on one side, what we want is to have a place for this sharing, so that members of the community can share their results, can share their manuals, can share their use cases about media, about video and learning. Basically, the Media Hub won't store content. This is something that we have discussed in the group. So at the end, the Media Hub would be a reference place. So it will point to somewhere else where you actually get the real content, but you have the trust that this content has been curated and so on. And while the hub will support any license, I think there's a commitment on all the community on try to focus on open licensing and CC licenses. On the finding part, so once we have content and we have a lot of content, there's a question of finding on how I can find the relevant content for me. So on one side, we are working on the metadata. So in order to find and describe the content. Another key point on the project is that we are aware that there are more languages than English in the world, and also in Europe. So we have an eye in language awareness and the ability of translating the content. Here, there's a lot of secondary, very interesting questions about if you are looking for a content, up to what point is better to find that into your own language or on a secondary language. But this is something that will be dealt with into this result. If available, we will search into captions. Very recently, the ability to make automated captions is improving a lot. So I think for the moment, we will go to the end. We could assume that a lot of the content that has been created has any sort of captions or subtitles. And finally, I'm, if possible, to build a recommended system. So not only you have to find out, but the system recommends you, because of your profile, what could be interesting for you. And finally, regarding value, we think that not everything should be on the portal. We want to have a lot, but we want to make a curator scheme, so somebody has to assess the results. I think it's important for building that trust relationship between the users and the portal. And for that, at this stage of the project, that will be done by project members. On the long run, we expect to have any volunteers or maybe the transaction plus network or whatever to take care of this. Also, there could be a user evaluation. That's the stars you point for the content in order to help you to review the videos that you have seen and to make better result of the search and also the recommender. So at this stage, we are building the site. So for the site, there's nothing else to see, but we have a peek about the kind of content we are going to have there. So for instance, we have videos like writing a script. So how to create the script for a media video from a partner, or what's the right way to do synchronous online teaching. So we feel that, for instance, this kind of content, and especially if it's curated content, is the content that will help and will fit into the motivation and needs for the project. Let me see a couple of examples more. For instance, a beginner's video to virtual reality, or a student toolbox for how to find the proper tool for wading into the jungle. So basically, what we expect to have in the portal is a single place to go in and solve the needs for the people interested in creating video and media content, and doing the right way, save a lot of time, and at the end get better products. And well, basically that is around the hub. We expect to have an alpha release this summer, and then we'll have some content, and we'll do another presentation, and all of you will take notice of this. And that's it. So I don't know if you have any question.
Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, we should say that at the Media and Learning Conference on the 20th and 21st of June in Leuven, we will have a workshop, and by then we'll certainly be able to see your alpha version of the resources database. Any questions for Carlos, or indeed for Soledad, who's also here with him, who's Carlos's colleague? Everyone is very quiet today.
Yes.
It's definitely coming to the end of the year feeling, I think. Thanks. I see we're getting comments in the chat earlier anyway about people taking up the resources and making use of the various different outputs that we have in the project. Maybe all my colleagues from the team would kind of switch on their mics as well too, and because all of you, of course, are coming from universities yourselves. So I was just wondering how much of this is new. Do you, for example, Sonia, if I asked you, and Fao, do you provide resources like is planned for the resources database? Do you provide those kinds of resources to academic staff in Erlangen?
We have different platforms where we already can provide this kind of resources. So we do that usually in German. This is something where we have to accelerate that we also provide exchange in English, also for our own staff. But there's already some things going on. But I think it's quite interesting to have it then at a European level put together, because then it can be much more powerful and interesting.
Mm. And Carlos, what about yourselves in UPV? Do you have a kind of a database that you provide to academic staff, probably in Spanish, I guess?
Yes, we have some content, but I have to say that this is also the opportunity to do it better. So I think I need our own dog food, but sometimes the question is that once you look at the content that has other universities, other persons, when you realize that once I had that, and second, I should have explained that much better. So I think that a real result for me of the project is to have access to that content. Of course, there's the language barrier, the language problem. I think it's, for instance, in our case, our teachers prefer strongly content in Spanish, but I think that if the content is good enough, I think there are reasons to make the effort to go for a different language and go to the source. So I expect to have a lot of value for the project in this area.
Could I maybe ask the people who joined us who are not coming from the partnership directly, are there resources you would like to see there? Are there kind of gaps, do you think, in terms of, gosh, our academics and our staff would love to find something on, I don't know, accessibility, on introducing X, or on, is there something that you say we really have a gap in terms of what we provide within our university? Go to pick on somebody, of course. John, how about you in Galway? How well supported do you think your academic colleagues are in terms of access to this kind of advice? Are there gaps?
I would say there may well be gaps. In particular, access and accessibility. I think it's a whole new field. Like we're really, I can only speak for my institution here, but we're sort of finding our way as we go and learning new things all the time. I'm thinking about closed captioning. I saw a presentation just, it was a couple of months ago, and they'd gone beyond closed captioning. They'd actually gone to sort of signing. So sign language for people who are hearing impaired and things like that. And that hadn't even remotely gone on my, so there's so many aspects to access and things like that I'd love to know a lot more about. So yeah, I think that would be a brilliant start.
Fleur, how about you in UVA? Were there things that you think, oh, we could definitely do with input on something or resources on something?
Well, what were our own department, but I'm not really sure, is it really for the use of the supporting staff or like really in courses?
Supporting staff, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are really figuring out a lot ourselves, mostly also about privacy. What can you share? What can't you share? Also, how do you store your data? What do you keep? What do you throw away? So we're really searching ourselves in that subject.
Those kinds of guidelines, yeah. I think everybody's struggling with, I mean, privacy is an issue for absolutely everybody. I think if I asked for a hands up around the room, we'd all be identifying that as a single big issue at the moment that most universities are really struggling with. So how it affects our, what we call third space provider, our services is equally important. Okay, then we just wanted to see, Sonia and I just wanted for a last couple of moments, Sonia, any final thoughts from you about the project and anything you'd like to ask our visitors that have joined us this afternoon, who we hope we can include in our TransACTION Plus group as well, if they're not already there?
Exactly. So first of all, thank you very much that you came and that you listened to what we are doing and contributed to our work. And I think that's what we really would like to achieve, that the community, so we are kind of these 5 organizations, being the the core developers, but we would like to really enlarge it and bring it into the media and learning community, and really we would like to invite you to contribute, to criticize what we are doing also, and to contribute in that we keep in a change and kind of wide the whole community of TransACTION. So thank you so much, and we will try to keep you updated as much as possible, and try to get you involved in different activities of the project.